The invitation came in a group text, and Whitney Gallagher almost deleted it out of habit. Her best friend from college, Sarah, had been trying to get her on a ski trip for 3 winters running, and every year Whitney found an excuse. This time, though, Sarah's message was different. Please come. I need you there. Going through something and could really use my girl. That changed everything. Whitney stood in the Denver airport rental car line 2 weeks later, her borrowed ski jacket feeling stiff and foreign. She had never been skiing. Growing up in Miami, snow was something she saw in movies, and her adult life had been consumed by building her art restoration business from the ground up. At 28, she could identify Renaissance pigments and repair centuries-old canvas, but she had no idea how to strap 2 planks to her feet and slide down a mountain. The drive to Aspen took 3 hours, and Whitney's stomach twisted with each passing mile. The mountains loomed larger, their peaks dusted with white that seemed both beautiful and intimidating. She tried calling Sarah twice, but both calls went to voicemail. By the time she pulled up to the massive cabin, the sun was setting behind the peaks, painting everything in shades of pink and gold. The cabin was gorgeous, all timber and glass with warm light spilling from the windows. Whitney could hear laughter inside as she hauled her suitcase up the front steps. The door swung open before she could knock, and Sarah threw her arms around her. You came. You actually came. Of course I came. You okay? Whitney pulled back, studying her friend's face. Sarah looked tired, shadows under her eyes that makeup could not quite hide. Better now that you are here. Come on, everyone's inside. Sarah grabbed her suitcase and pulled her into the warmth. The main room was expansive, with vaulted ceilings and a stone fireplace that could have fit a car. About a dozen people milled around, drinks in hand, their faces flushed from either the heat or the altitude or both. Sarah made introductions rapid fire. Most of the names slid right out of Whitney's head, except for one. And this is Adam Lawrence, Sarah said, gesturing to a man standing slightly apart from the others near the windows. Adam, this is Whitney, the friend I told you about. Adam turned, and Whitney felt something shift in her chest. He was tall, probably 6'2", with dark hair that fell across his forehead and eyes so blue they looked almost unreal in the firelight. He wore jeans and a simple black sweater, but something about the way he carried himself suggested he was used to more formal settings. When he smiled, it was cautious, like he was testing the expression. The one who has never skied, he asked, walking over. His voice was deep, warm. That's me, the complete beginner. Whitney felt her cheeks heat. You, never been on skis in my life. His smile widened, became more genuine. Everyone else here has been skiing since they could walk, apparently. We are the outcasts. The misfits, Whitney agreed, and something passed between them, a spark of understanding. Sarah was already being pulled away by someone asking about dinner plans. Whitney found herself standing alone with Adam, the party swirling around them but feeling distant. So how do you know Sarah? Adam asked. College roommates. 4 years of late-night pizza and terrible decisions. You, business school actually. Same program, different year. We reconnected at an alumni event last year. He paused, then added, She mentioned you restore art. I do. Mostly painting, some sculpture work. It is detailed, quiet work. Nothing like this. She gestured at the room, the energy, the barely controlled chaos of friends reuniting. I get that. I spend most of my time in quiet rooms too. What do you do? He hesitated for just a fraction of a second. I work in manufacturing, family business. Lots of meetings, lots of quiet rooms. Something about the way he said, it made Whitney think there was more to the story. But before she could probe further, someone called for everyone to gather for dinner. The meal was loud and cheerful. with wine flowing freely and stories getting progressively more outrageous. Whitney sat between Sarah and a woman named Jennifer who worked in finance and would not stop talking about her recent trip to Thailand. Across the table, Adam caught her eye once and made a subtle face that suggested he was equally overwhelmed. Whitney had to hide her laugh in her napkin. After dinner, people scattered. Some headed to the hot tub on the back deck, others claimed the couches for a movie. Sarah pulled Whitney aside in the kitchen. "Okay, real talk. Things with Marcus are falling apart." Marcus was Sarah's boyfriend of 2 years, a guy Whitney had never quite warmed to. "What happened?" "He wants me to move to New York for his career, wants me to give up my job here, my life, everything. And when I said I needed time to think about it, he gave me an ultimatum." Sarah's eyes were bright with unshed tears. "I have until we get back from this trip to decide." "Sarah, that's not fair to you. I know. But I love him, Whit, at least I think I do. I do not know any more." She wiped at her eyes. "I did not invite him on this trip because I needed space to think, to remember who I am without him." Whitney hugged her friend tight. "Whatever you decide, I am here. You know that." "I know. Thank you for coming." Sarah pulled back, managing a watery smile. "Now go be social." "I saw you and Adam making eyes at each other." "We were not making eyes. We were bonding over our mutual lack of skiing ability." "Sure. Whatever you say." Sarah grinned and headed off to join the hot tub crowd. Whitney wandered back to the main room, where the movie watchers had claimed most of the seating. She spotted Adam on the far end of the room, standing by the windows again, looking out at the dark mountains. She grabbed 2 beers from the cooler and walked over. "Want one?" He turned, surprised, then smiled. "Thanks, not much of a movie person. Not when it is something I have seen 5 times already." She joined him at the window. Outside, the snow reflected the moonlight, making everything glow silver. "It is beautiful here." "It is. Very different from where I grew up." "Where was that?" "Chicago. Concrete and steel mostly." "You said Miami, right? Born and raised." "I moved to Savannah for work 5 years ago. Better market for art restoration, believe it or not. Plus I needed a change." "From what?" Whitney took a long sip of her beer. "Family stuff. My dad had pretty specific ideas about what I should do with my life. Art restoration was not on the list. Let me guess. He wanted you to be a doctor, lawyer, actually." "He is one, very successful, very sure that his way is the only way. We do not talk much anymore." Adam nodded slowly. "I understand that. Family expectations are heavy. Yours too, something like that." He turned back to the window, his expression unreadable. "Sometimes I think about what it would be like to just disappear. Start over somewhere no one knows me or what I am supposed to be." The loneliness in his voice struck something deep in Whitney's chest. "That is part of why I moved to Savannah. Smaller city, fresh start. It helped." "Do you ever miss it? Miami, your family?" "I miss the ocean." "The family part is complicated." She paused. "What about you? You miss Chicago." "I miss parts of it. But I travel so much for work that nowhere really feels like home anymore. I have an apartment in Manhattan, but it is just a place to sleep between flights." They fell into comfortable silence, watching the snow outside. Behind them, the movie played on, laughter occasionally erupting from the couch. But here in their quiet bubble by the window, the world felt smaller, more manageable. "So tomorrow," Adam said eventually, "everyone's hitting the slopes first thing. 8 in the morning." "That sounds absolutely terrible." He laughed, a real laugh that crinkled the corners of his eyes. "It does it not? What if we bail? Let them have their expert slopes while we figure out how to not die on the bunny hill. You want to learn to ski. I want to not be the only person who cannot ski. There is a difference." He glanced at her. "We could suffer through lessons together." Safety in numbers. Whitney considered. The thought of strapping on skis and falling repeatedly in front of all these confident, experienced people made her want to hide in her room. But doing it with Adam, another beginner, another person who did not quite fit into this group, that felt different. Okay, but I am warning you, I am going to be terrible at this. Can't be worse than me. I have terrible balance. I am afraid of heights. The slopes are steep. Very. Well, then we are definitely going to die. But he was grinning now, and Whitney found herself grinning back. Someone called Adam's name from across the room. He waved them off. I should probably be social, but tomorrow we meet at breakfast and face our doom together. It is a date, Whitney said, then immediately felt her face flush. I mean a plan. It is a plan. His smile turned softer. A date works for me too. He headed toward the crowd, leaving Whitney by the window with her heart beating just a bit faster than normal. She told herself it was the altitude. Morning came too early and too bright. Whitney stumbled downstairs in her borrowed ski gear, feeling ridiculous. The pants were too puffy, the jacket too bulky. She felt like a marshmallow. The kitchen was chaos, everyone grabbing quick breakfasts before heading out. Adam stood by the coffee maker, looking equally ridiculous in his rental gear, and when their eyes met, they both started laughing. We look insane, Whitney said, accepting the coffee he poured for her. We look like people who are about to make very poor life choices. He grabbed a muffin from the basket on the counter. Ready? Absolutely not. Perfect. Neither am I. They drove separately to the ski resort, following the convoy of cars from the cabin. The parking lot was packed, and the base lodge was swarming with people in bright ski gear. Whitney felt her stomach drop as she looked up at the mountain, at the tiny figures zigzagging down the slopes. We do not have to do this, Adam said quietly, standing beside her. We could fake an injury and go get coffee instead. It was tempting, but Whitney thought about all the times she had backed away from challenges because they were uncomfortable. Thought about how she had let her father's disapproval keep her from pursuing art for years. Thought about how many experiences she had missed because fear held her back. No, let us do this. Let us be terrible together and survive to tell the tale. Adam's expression shifted into something like admiration. Okay, together. They found the ski school meeting area and joined a group of beginners. Most of them were children. A few were teenagers. Whitney and Adam were by far the oldest students, which should have been embarrassing but somehow just made it funnier. Their instructor was a woman named Kelly who looked like she was 19 and had probably been skiing since birth. All right, everyone, we are going to start with the basics. How to put your skis on, how to stand, how to fall safely. Kelly demonstrated, making everything look effortless. Whitney managed to get her first ski on. The second one took 3 tries and nearly resulted in her falling over. Adam was not faring much better, struggling with the bindings. They exchanged looks of mutual suffering. This is already worse than I imagined, Adam muttered. We have not even moved yet. That is what makes it worse. Kelly had them practice standing, then shuffling forward, then the basics of a wedge turn. Everything felt awkward and unnatural. Whitney's legs ached after 10 minutes. Beside her, Adam kept nearly tipping over, catching himself at the last second with flailing arms that made the kids giggle. You are doing great, Kelly called out with aggressive enthusiasm. She is a liar, Adam said under his breath, and Whitney had to bite back a laugh. They spent an hour on flat ground before Kelly finally led them to the smallest, gentlest slope Whitney had ever seen. It barely qualified as a hill. It looked like something a toddler could walk up. But strapped to skis, it felt like Everest. Remember, pizza slice to slow down, French fries to go straight, Kelly demonstrated again. Whitney positioned herself at the top of the tiny hill. Her heart was pounding. This was ridiculous. It was barely a slope, but fear did not care about logic. "You got this," Adam said from behind her. "Just remember the pizza thing." "Pizza," Whitney repeated. She pushed off. For about 3 seconds it was fine. Then she picked up speed, forgot everything Kelly had taught them, panicked, and sat down hard on the snow. Pain shot through her tailbone. Adam slid up beside her, managing to stop in a perfect wedge. "You okay?" "I fell on purpose. Strategic falling." She accepted his offered hand and let him pull her up. "Everything hurt." "That is what I am going to tell myself too when I inevitably crash." He started to say something else, but suddenly lost his balance, windmilled his arms, and toppled sideways into the snow. Whitney could not help it. She started laughing. Adam, sprawled in the snow, started laughing too. They were both completely ridiculous, and everyone was probably watching, and it did not matter at all. They spent 2 more hours on that tiny slope. Sometimes they made it down without falling. Sometimes they did not. By the time Kelly declared the lesson over, Whitney's entire body ached, and she was pretty sure she had bruises forming on bruises. "Same time tomorrow?" Kelly asked cheerfully. "Maybe," Whitney lied. Adam waited until Kelly was out of earshot. "There is no way. I cannot feel my legs. I think I broke something. Not sure what, but something is definitely broken." They returned their rental skis and found the Base Lodge restaurant. The rest of their group was somewhere on the mountain, probably executing perfect parallel turns down black diamond runs. Whitney and Adam claimed a table by the window, ordered hot chocolate loaded with whipped cream, and collapsed into their chairs. "That was humbling," Adam said. "That was traumatic. Those children were lapping us. That one kid could not have been more than 6. Made me question my entire existence." Whitney wrapped her hands around her hot chocolate, letting the warmth seep into her frozen fingers. Outside, snow had started to fall, light and lazy. "You know what, though? I am glad we did it. Are you, though? Are you really?" "Okay, glad might be too strong, but I do not regret it. We tried something new. We were terrible at it. We survived." Adam's expression softened. "Yeah, we did." He paused. "I have not done something I am bad at in a long time. I have spent so many years trying to be perfect at everything, trying to meet everyone's expectations. It is kind of freeing to just be catastrophically bad at something and have it be okay." Whitney understood exactly what he meant. "When I first started my business, I was terrified of failing. Terrified of proving my dad right, that I should have stuck with law. Every mistake felt like the end of the world. But the thing about restoration work is that you learn more from your mistakes than your successes. The pieces you struggle with teach you the most." "What made you choose art restoration?" She sipped her hot chocolate, thinking back. "I saw this painting once in a museum when I was maybe 15. It was Renaissance, incredibly beautiful, but you could see where it had been damaged and carefully repaired over the centuries. And the placard talked about all the people who had worked on it, all the hours of careful restoration. I realized that these people had dedicated their lives to saving beauty, to preserving something meaningful. That spoke to me in a way nothing else ever had. But your dad did not understand. He thought it was impractical, not prestigious enough. He wanted me in corporate law, making partner at some big firm." She shrugged. "We had a huge fight when I told him I was moving to Savannah to work with a master restorer. He said I was throwing my life away. We have not had a real conversation since." Adam was quiet for a moment. "That must hurt." "It does. But living his life for him would have hurt worse." She looked up, met his eyes. "What about you? The family business you mentioned, that is what you wanted." His jaw tightened slightly. "It is complicated. Most family things are." He seemed to be weighing something, deciding how much to share. Finally, he said, "My father built a manufacturing company from nothing. Automotive parts primarily. He grew it into something significant, employed thousands of people. When he died 3 years ago, I inherited it all. The company, the responsibility, everything. That is a lot to carry. It is. Especially because I never wanted it. I wanted to be an architect. I studied business because he insisted, but my plan was always to go back to school, get my architecture degree, design buildings. Then he got sick, and suddenly I was 25 and running a company I never asked for. Whitney could hear the grief in his voice, the weight of expectations and obligation. You could not say no. How could I? Thousands of jobs depending on me, his legacy, everyone watching to see if I could fill his shoes. He stared out the window. Some days I feel like I am living someone else's life. But you are good at it, running the company. Unfortunately, yes, I have a knack for it. We have grown significantly in the past 3 years. New contracts, expansion, innovation, everything my father would have wanted. His smile was sad. But I still think about architecture, about the buildings I will never design. Whitney reached across the table, put her hand on his. The gesture felt natural, necessary. I am sorry. He turned his hand over, laced his fingers through hers. Thank you. I do not talk about this much. Most people just see the success, the company growth. They do not see what it cost. What is the company called? Again, that slight hesitation. Lawrence Industries. You would not have heard of it. We are business to business, nothing consumer-facing. Something about the name tickled at Whitney's memory, but she could not place it. Still, running a major manufacturing company at 28, that is impressive even if it was not your choice. I am 30, actually, and I am not sure impressive is the word. Surviving, maybe. I am surviving it. He squeezed her hand gently. But enough about work. Tell me something else about you, something that has nothing to do with art or family. Whitney thought about it. I am obsessed with vintage detective novels, like old-school noir stuff. I have a collection of first editions that is probably worth more than my car. Really, that is not what I expected. What did you expect? I do not know. Art history books, poetry, I like those too, but there is something about those old detective stories. The mood, the atmosphere. Everything is shadows and moral ambiguity and clever dialogue. She grinned. Plus, they are fun. Favorite? The Maltese Falcon, probably, classic for a reason. You? I am more of a science fiction person. Old Asimov, Clark, that era. I like stories about possible futures, about humanity reaching for something greater. The architect in you, building worlds instead of buildings. His smile turned genuine, warm. I never thought of it that way, but yes, exactly that. They talked for another hour, the conversation flowing easily from books to movies to travel stories. Whitney learned that Adam had been to 38 countries, most of them for business but a few for pleasure. He had eaten street food in Bangkok, seen the northern lights in Iceland, gotten lost in the medinas of Marrakech. He spoke about these experiences with a mix of appreciation and distance, like they had happened to someone else. You sound like you are describing a very nice documentary, Whitney said eventually. Not your actual life. Adam blinked. That is uncomfortably accurate. When is the last time you traveled somewhere just for yourself? No business, no obligations, he thought about it. I honestly cannot remember. That is sad, Adam. I know. He squeezed her hand, which he was still holding. What about you? Where do you want to go? Italy. I have studied Italian Renaissance art my entire adult life, and I have never actually been there. I want to see the real things, the originals, not just photos in books. Her voice picked up excitement. I want to stand in front of Caravaggio's paintings and see how he used light. I want to visit the restoration labs and watch the masters work. That is my dream trip. Why have not you gone? Money, mostly. Starting a business is expensive. Every extra dollar goes back into equipment, materials, marketing, maybe in a few years. You should go sooner, Adam said. Life is unpredictable. If you wait for the perfect time, it might never come. That is very wise for someone who has not taken a personal vacation in years, he laughed. Do as I say, not as I do. Their phones buzzed simultaneously. The group text lit up with messages. The others were finishing up their runs and heading back to the cabin. Dinner plans were being made. Guess we should go, Whitney said, but neither of them moved. Yeah, Adam agreed, still not moving. Finally, reluctantly, Whitney pulled her hand back. They gathered their things and headed out to the parking lot. The snow was falling heavier now, coating everything in fresh white. See you back there, Adam asked. Unless we get lost in the snow, in that case it was nice knowing you. Whitney drove back to the cabin with a smile on her face that would not quit. Her body hurt, she was exhausted, and she had been terrible at skiing. But something about the day felt significant, like a door opening to possibilities she had not known existed. The cabin was warm and chaotic when she arrived. People were showering, changing, calling out to each other between rooms. Sarah found her in the kitchen. How was it? Did you learn to ski? I learned that I am very bad at skiing. But you went with Adam. How was that? Whitney tried to keep her expression neutral. It was fine. He is nice. Sarah gave her a knowing look. Nice, sure. That is why you are smiling like that. I am not smiling like anything. Whitney, I have known you for 10 years. You like him. I just met him yesterday. So, sometimes that is how it works. Lightning bolt, love at first sight, all that romantic stuff you claim not to believe in. Whitney did not believe in love at first sight. She believed in compatibility and shared values and building something over time. But she could not deny the pull she felt toward Adam, the ease of their conversation, the way his sadness resonated with her own. It does not matter, Whitney said. We live in different cities. We have different lives, and I am only here for a week. A week is enough to start something, maybe enough to start something important. Sarah's expression turned serious. Look, I know you have been closed off since that thing with Derek, but Adam is different. I can see it in how he looks at you. Derek had been Whitney's last relationship, 2 years ago. 6 months of dating that ended when he admitted he had never taken her seriously, had always seen her art restoration business as a cute hobby rather than a real career. It had stung more than she wanted to admit. I am not closed off, Whitney protested. You are. You have been. But I saw you at breakfast this morning, the way you and Adam were laughing. That is the most open I have seen you in years. Sarah touched her arm gently. Just do not let fear stop you from exploring this, whatever this is. Before Whitney could respond, the room filled with people returning from their showers, everyone talking at once about their runs, their near misses, their triumphs. Adam appeared in fresh clothes, his hair still damp, and his eyes found Whitney across the room. He smiled, and she felt something warm unfold in her chest. Dinner was at a restaurant in town, a rustic place with exposed beams and a massive fireplace. The group took up 3 tables pushed together, and somehow Whitney ended up seated next to Adam. Their knees touched under the table, a point of contact that neither of them moved away from. The food was incredible, hearty and rich, the kind of meal you could only eat after spending a day in the cold. Whitney ordered elk, which she had never tried before, and Adam got trout. They shared bites, comparing flavors, and it felt intimate in a way that made Whitney's heart race. Tomorrow, someone announced, we are doing the full day on the slopes, first chair up, last chair down. Everyone cheered. Whitney and Adam exchanged glances. I think we might sit tomorrow out, Adam said casually. Whitney and I were talking about exploring the town instead. Give our bodies a day to recover. A few people made jokes about the amateurs, but it was good-natured. Sarah caught Whitney's eye and winked. After dinner, the group moved to a bar down the street, a place with live music and local beer. Whitney was not much of a drinker, and after one beer she found the noise and crowd overwhelming. She slipped outside into the cold, quiet night. Adam followed a moment later. Too much, a little. I am not great with big groups. Me neither. I do it for business constantly, but it always drains me. He leaned against the wall beside her. Want a walk? They wandered through the town, which was picturesque in that way mountain towns always are, all twinkling lights and snow-dusted storefronts. Everything looked like a postcard. The streets were quiet, most people tucked into restaurants and bars. This does not feel real, Whitney said. This town, this trip, any of it. What does feel real? My workshop back home. Paint-stained tables and magnifying lamps and the smell of linseed oil. That feels real. This feels like a dream. Maybe that is okay. Maybe we need dreams sometimes. They walked in comfortable silence for a while, their breath making clouds in the cold air. Whitney's mind was spinning, trying to make sense of what she was feeling. This did not happen to her. She did not meet strangers and feel instant connections. She was careful, cautious, someone who took time to trust, but with Adam everything felt different, accelerated. Like they were on a timeline she could not control. Can I ask you something? Adam said eventually. Sure. What are you afraid of? The question caught her off guard. What do you mean? You said you are afraid of heights, but you went skiing anyway. You moved away from your family even though it damaged the relationship. You started your own business. You do not seem like someone who lets fear stop you, but I get the sense there is something you are afraid of, something deeper. Whitney's throat tightened. I am afraid of being like my father. How so? He is brilliant but cold. He achieves everything he sets out to do, but he does it alone. He pushed away my mother with his ambition, pushed away me when I did not fit his plan. He is successful and miserable, and I am terrified of waking up one day and realizing I have become the same thing. Someone who chose their career over every relationship, every connection. She had never said this out loud before, never articulated this fear so clearly. Adam was quiet for a long moment. I understand that fear, more than you know. He stopped walking, turned to face her. But Whitney, you are not cold, you are not alone. You are here on this trip for your friend. You spent today falling on your ass with me, laughing through the embarrassment. That is not someone who is closing themselves off. Maybe, but I have been closed off. Since Derek, since before that really. It is easier to keep people at a distance, safer. Lonelier though. Yes, lonelier. He reached out, gently brushed a snowflake from her hair. The gesture was tender, careful. I am scared too, of wasting my life on obligations that do not fulfill me, of looking back at 70 and realizing I never actually lived, just survived, of becoming so buried in my father's legacy that I forget who I was supposed to be. Whitney looked up at him, at the vulnerability in his eyes, and something in her chest cracked open. So what do we do? How do we not become the things we are afraid of? I do not know. But maybe we start by taking risks, small ones at first, like learning to ski even though we are terrible at it, like spending time with someone we just met and letting ourselves feel something. Is that what this is, feeling something? Yes. His voice was rough, honest. I have not felt this connected to someone in years, maybe ever, and it is terrifying and exciting, and I have no idea what to do with it. Whitney's heart was hammering. We only just met. This is crazy. It is, completely crazy. He stepped closer. But I do not want to walk away from it just because it is fast or unexpected or complicated. I have spent 3 years doing the sensible thing, the responsible thing. Just this once, I want to do something because it feels right. What if it does not work out? What if we are just caught up in the moment and when we get back to real life, everything falls apart? Then at least we tried. At least we were brave enough to reach for something. He cupped her face gently. I am not asking for forever right now, Whitney. I am just asking for this week. For a chance to see where this goes. No expectations, no pressure. Just two people who feel something, exploring that feeling. Whitney knew she should be cautious, should protect herself, should remember that she had only known him for a day and a half. But looking into Adam's eyes, feeling the warmth of his hand against her cold cheek, all her careful defenses crumbled. Okay, she whispered. This week. Let us see where this goes. He smiled, and it was like the sun coming out. Then he leaned down and kissed her. The kiss was gentle at first, questioning. But when Whitney kissed him back, it deepened, became something that felt inevitable and perfect and terrifying all at once. Heat bloomed through her despite the cold, and she pressed closer, her hands fisting in his jacket. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Adam rested his forehead against hers. Okay, that was worth the risk. Whitney laughed, breathless. Yeah, it really was. They walked back to the bar holding hands, and when they rejoined the group, Sarah gave Whitney a look that said they would be having a long conversation later. But for now, Whitney just sat beside Adam, his arm around her shoulders, and let herself feel happy. The next morning, Whitney woke to sunlight streaming through her window and a text from Adam. Coffee and exploration, everyone else heading to slopes at 8. She smiled at her phone and texted back, Give me 30 minutes. They met in the kitchen, which was blessedly quiet with everyone else already gone. Adam had made coffee, and he handed her a mug the moment she appeared. You are a good man, Whitney said, inhaling the steam. I try. He looked well-rested, happy. The shadows under his eyes that had been there the first night were less pronounced. I looked up some things to do in town. There is a hot springs about 20 minutes away, and an art gallery I thought you might like, and approximately 700 expensive boutiques we can mock. That sounds perfect. They took Adam's rental, a nice SUV that made Whitney's compact look like a toy. The drive into town was beautiful, all snow-covered peaks and pine trees. Adam drove with one hand on the wheel, the other resting on the center console where Whitney could have taken it if she wanted to. She wanted to. She did, lacing her fingers through his. So this gallery, Whitney said. What kind of art? Local artists, mostly. But the website mentioned they also have rotating exhibits of historical pieces. Right now it is Western American art from the 19th century. Cowboys and landscapes. Not usually my area, but I love seeing original pieces. You can learn so much from examining the brushwork up close, seeing how the artist solved problems. Will you teach me? What to look for? The request touched her. Derek had never wanted to hear about her work, had glazed over whenever she got excited about a restoration project. I would love to. The gallery was small but beautifully curated. Whitney immediately gravitated to a large landscape painting, a mountain scene that must have been painted somewhere nearby 150 years ago. She pulled out her phone flashlight, angling it to see the texture of the paint. See here. She gestured for Adam to come closer. The way the artist built up the paint in thick layers for the snow, that is impasto technique. It creates texture, makes the snow look three-dimensional, and look at the sky, how thin and smooth the paint is there. The contrast makes the mountains feel more solid, more present. Adam leaned in, studying the painting with new eyes. I never would have noticed that. Most people do not. That is the beauty of it. The artist made 1,000 tiny decisions, used all this technical skill, but the end result just feels effortless. She moved to another painting, a portrait of a cowboy. And this one, see how the face is really detailed but the background is loose, almost sketchy. That draws your eye to the subject, tells you where to focus. They spent an hour in the gallery, with Whitney pointing out techniques and Adam asking thoughtful questions. By the end, she felt energized in the way she always did when talking about art with someone who was genuinely interested. "Thank you," Adam said as they left. "That was incredible. You really love this." "I do. It never gets old seeing how artists solve visual problems. Every painting is a puzzle they figured out." "Is that how you approach restoration? As solving a puzzle?" "Exactly. The puzzle is figuring out what the artist intended, what time and damage have done, how to repair it without losing the original character. Sometimes it takes months to work through one piece." She smiled. "It is painstaking and tedious, and I love every second of it." From the gallery, they drove to the hot springs. It was a natural formation that had been turned into a small resort with several pools of varying temperatures. They rented towels and swimsuits and separated to change. Whitney had not thought about the intimacy of being in swimsuits together. But when she emerged and saw Adam waiting by the pools, she felt suddenly shy. He wore simple board shorts, and she could see that, despite his desk job, he was clearly in good shape. He looked at her in her simple one piece, and his eyes went warm. "Hi," he said softly. "Hi." They started in the hottest pool, which was almost too hot, but felt incredible on Whitney's sore muscles. The pool was carved into natural rock, and steam rose off the water in wispy clouds. There were a few other people scattered around, but enough space to feel private. "This is amazing," Whitney said, sinking in up to her shoulders. "Better than skiing. So much better than skiing." Adam floated closer. They were in public, surrounded by strangers, but something about the heat and the steam made everything feel dreamlike, separate from reality. He reached for her under the water, pulled her gently toward him. She went, letting herself float into his arms. "Is this okay?" he asked quietly. "Yes, more than okay, perfect actually." They stayed in the water for over an hour, talking and holding each other, and occasionally moving to cooler pools when the heat became too much. Adam told her about his favorite buildings, the architectural marvels he had seen in his travels. She told him about her most challenging restoration, a 14th-century altarpiece that had been damaged by water and taken her 9 months to repair. "You ever worry you will make a mistake and ruin something priceless?" Adam asked. "All the time. The fear never goes away." "But that is part of what makes it meaningful. The stakes are real. Every decision matters." She paused. "Do you feel that way about running your company, that weight of important decisions?" "Every single day. Thousands of jobs depend on the decisions I make. If I fail, families lose their income." "It is crushing sometimes. But you have not failed. You said the company is growing." "It is, but growth is not the same as satisfaction. I can be successful at something I never wanted to do." He tightened his arms around her. "Being here with you is the first time in years I have felt like myself. Not the CEO, not my father's son, just Adam." Whitney turned in his arms to face him. "I like Adam, just Adam." He kissed her, slow and deep, and Whitney forgot about the other people, the public setting, everything but the feeling of his lips on hers and his hands gentle on her waist. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, his eyes were dark with want. "We should probably get out of the water," he said roughly, "before I forget where we are." "Yeah, probably." They dragged themselves out reluctantly, returned to the changing rooms to shower and dress. When they met again, both fully clothed, the spell was partially broken, but the connection remained. They held hands walking back to the car. "Lunch," Adam suggested. "I am starving." They found a small cafe that served gourmet sandwiches and local beer. Settled into a corner booth, they kept finding excuses to touch, their feet tangling under the table, hands reaching across to steal fries. "Can I ask you something potentially too serious?" Whitney said. "After this morning, I think we are past worrying about too serious. What happens after this week? We live in different cities. You travel constantly for work. How does this work in real life?" Adam was quiet for a moment, considering. "I do not know, but I do not want to think about it ending before it has really started. Can we just be in this moment? Figure out the logistics later. I am not usually good at living in the moment, me neither. But maybe we can learn together." He took her hand. "I really like you, Whitney, more than I have liked anyone in a very long time. I want to see where this goes, even if the path is complicated." "I want that too. It is just scary." The best things usually are. They spent the rest of the afternoon wandering through town, ducking in and out of shops, sharing stories, stealing kisses in quiet corners. It felt like they were in a bubble, separate from the real world. Whitney knew it could not last, but for now she let herself sink into the feeling. Evening came too fast. Back at the cabin, the rest of the group was already home, loud and energetic from their day on the slopes. Sarah pulled Whitney aside immediately. "Okay, you and Adam disappeared all day." "Spill." Whitney tried to play it cool. "We went to some hot springs, checked out a gallery, and it was nice." Sarah narrowed her eyes. "You are glowing. Something happened. We kissed. Happy now, finally. I knew you two had chemistry." Sarah's smile faded slightly. "But you are being careful, right? Not rushing into something just because it is exciting and new. We are taking it day by day. That is all we can do." Whitney paused. "What about you and Marcus? Have you made a decision?" Sarah's expression crumpled. "I think I am going to end it." "You were right, what you said the first night. Him giving me an ultimatum is not fair. If he loved me the way I deserve, he would want to find a solution that works for both of us, not just demand I upend my life." Whitney hugged her friend tight. "I am sorry. But I think you are making the right choice. It hurts though. I know. But you are strong. You will get through this." That night, dinner was at the cabin, a group effort with everyone cooking together. Adam and Whitney ended up on salad duty, working side by side at the counter. Every accidental touch felt electric. Everyone else seemed oblivious, caught up in their own conversations and dynamics. After dinner, someone suggested games. They played charades, then cards against humanity, then devolved into just sitting around the fireplace telling stories. Adam kept his hand on Whitney's knee, his thumb tracing idle patterns that made it hard for her to concentrate on anything else. Around midnight, people started drifting off to bed. Sarah cornered Marcus in the kitchen, and Whitney could hear their voices rising. She and Adam exchanged glances. "Want to go outside?" he asked quietly. They grabbed their coats and slipped out to the back deck. The hot tub was running, steam rising into the cold night air. The stars were incredible, more than Whitney had ever seen. "I forget there are this many stars," she said, tilting her head back. "Light pollution. In the city you only see the brightest ones." Adam wrapped his arms around her from behind. "But out here, you can see everything." They stood like that for a long time, just holding each other and looking at the sky. Inside, they could hear Sarah and Marcus still arguing. Whitney's heart hurt for her friend. "Relationships are hard," she said softly. "They are, but some things are worth the difficulty." He turned her to face him. "I know we are moving fast. I know this is crazy, but I do not want to slow down. Is that wrong?" "I do not think it is wrong. I think it is terrifying and wonderful, and I do not want to slow down either." He kissed her under the stars, and Whitney felt like she was falling, tumbling into something too big to control. But for once in her careful, controlled life, she did not try to catch herself. The next few days blurred together in a haze of happiness. Adam and Whitney attempted skiing one more time, with only marginally better results. then gave it up entirely in favor of exploring. They drove through mountain passes, visited small towns, hiked through snow-covered trails. Every moment felt stolen, precious. They talked about everything. Whitney learned that Adam loved jazz music but could not carry a tune, that he had a younger sister who was a doctor in Seattle and who he missed terribly, that his favorite meal was his late mother's lasagna, a recipe he had never quite managed to replicate, that he felt guilty about how much money he made when so many people struggled. Adam learned that Whitney was afraid of spiders but loved snakes, that she had been engaged once, briefly, when she was 23, to a man who turned out to be cheating with her roommate, that she collected vintage postcards, that she cried at dog movies but never human ones, that she dreamed of one day opening her own restoration studio, a place where she could train new restorers. They also spent hours not talking, just existing together, reading side by side, cooking meals, sitting in comfortable silence while watching the snow fall. Whitney discovered that she loved the quiet with Adam even more than the conversation. Sarah's breakup with Marcus happened on day 4. He left early, angry and hurt. Sarah cried for hours while Whitney held her. Adam gave them space, taking the rest of the group out for dinner so Sarah could process in peace. "I know I made the right choice," Sarah said, wiping her eyes, "but it still hurts. Of course it hurts. You loved him. I just wish he had loved me enough to compromise. That is all I wanted. Some sign that my life, my career, my dreams mattered as much as his." She looked at Whitney. "Promise me something. If Adam ever makes you feel small, if he ever asks you to shrink yourself for him, you walk away. I promise. He seems different, though. The way he looks at you. The way he listens when you talk. Marcus never listened like that." Whitney thought about all the conversations she and Adam had shared, the way he asked questions and remembered details, the way he genuinely wanted to understand her work, her passions, her fears. "He does listen. It is one of the things I love about him." "Love," Sarah raised an eyebrow. "I am falling for him, fast and hard, and it is terrifying. But good terrifying. Yeah, good terrifying." On their second-to-last night at the cabin, Adam surprised Whitney. He had disappeared after lunch with vague excuses, leaving her to wonder. He returned at 6 and told her to dress warmly. "Where are we going? You will see." He drove them away from the town, up a winding mountain road. Whitney's fear of heights kicked in as the road got steeper, the drop-offs more severe. But she trusted Adam, kept her breathing steady. Finally, he pulled into a small clearing. Below them, the valley spread out, all lights and shadows. Above, the stars were beginning to appear. "I heard about this spot from someone at the coffee shop," Adam said. "They said it is the best view in the area. I wanted to share it with you." They got out, and Adam pulled blankets from the back of the SUV. He spread them in the flatbed, creating a cozy nest. They climbed up, wrapped in layers, and lay back to watch the sky darken and the stars emerge. "This is incredible," Whitney breathed. "You are incredible." Adam turned on his side to face her. "This week with you has been the best week I have had in years, maybe the best week of my life." "Adam, I know we have not talked about what happens next, about reality, but I do not want this to end. I do not want to go back to New York and have this become just a memory." Whitney's heart was racing. "What are you saying?" "I am saying I want to try, really try. Yes, we live in different cities. Yes, my schedule is insane, but I can visit Savannah. You can come to New York. We can figure it out if we both want to." He took her hand. "I am falling in love with you, Whitney. Maybe I am already there. And I need to know if you feel the same or if this has just been a vacation thing for you." Tears pricked Whitney's eyes. "This has never been just a vacation thing. I have been falling too. Since that first night, since we were by the window being the only two who could not ski. You make me want to be braver, to take risks, to reach for something even when I am scared. So we try. We do the long-distance thing, make it work somehow. Yes, we try. He kissed her, deep and passionate and full of promise. They stayed on that mountain until the cold became unbearable, wrapped in blankets and each other, planning a future that felt both impossible and inevitable. The last day came too quickly. Everyone packed up, exchanged contact information, made promises to do this again next year. Sarah hugged Whitney tight. "Thank you for coming, for being here when I needed you. Always. You know that. And Adam, he is a good one, do not let him get away." "I do not plan to." Adam and Whitney drove to the airport together, reluctant to separate even for the drive. At the terminal, they stood by the departures board, not wanting to say goodbye. "I have meetings all week," Adam said, "but I can fly to Savannah next weekend if you want." "I want." "Definitely want. I should tell you something before you hear it from somewhere else." He took a breath. "Lawrence Industries. It is bigger than I made it sound. We are one of the largest automotive parts manufacturers in the country. My name is on buildings. I show up in business magazines. There is a whole public side to my life I did not mention because I like just being Adam with you." Whitney processed this. "So you are not just a CEO, you are a pretty major CEO. I did not want that to change things between us. I did not want you to see me differently. I do not. You are still just Adam to me. Adam who cannot ski. Adam who likes science fiction and architecture and listens when I talk about art. The rest is just context." Relief flooded his face. "Thank you. Some people, once they know about the money and the company, that is all they see." "I am not some people." She kissed him softly. "And I cannot wait to see you next weekend." They parted reluctantly, heading to different gates. Whitney looked back twice, watching Adam walk away, already counting down the days until she would see him again. The week back in Savannah was strange. Whitney threw herself into work, a 19th century portrait that needed extensive cleaning and some minor paint restoration. But her mind kept drifting to Adam. They texted constantly, called every night. She learned that his company was negotiating a major contract with an electric vehicle manufacturer, potentially their biggest deal ever. He learned that she had been hired to restore a collection of miniature paintings for a museum, a prestigious job that could lead to more museum work. "I am proud of you," Adam said during one of their calls. "This is huge for your career. Thank you. I am terrified I will mess it up, but mostly I am excited." She paused. "How are the negotiations going?" Slowly. "Lots of legal details to work through. But if it goes through, we will be manufacturing parts for the next generation of electric vehicles. It is exactly the kind of innovation I want the company to be doing." There was genuine enthusiasm in his voice, the first time she had heard him sound excited about his work. "That is amazing, Adam." "Truly?" Friday came and Whitney cleaned her apartment 3 times. She changed clothes 4 times before Adam's flight landed. She felt like a teenager, nervous and giddy and ridiculous. When he walked through her front door, everything clicked back into place. He kissed her hello and it felt like coming home. "Your place is exactly what I imagined," he said, looking around. Whitney's apartment was small but filled with art, books stacked everywhere, a cozy chaos that reflected who she was. "It is a mess. It is perfect. It is you." They spent the weekend in their own bubble. Whitney showed him her workshop, let him see her current restoration project. Adam watched her work with genuine fascination, asking questions about techniques and materials. She showed him around Savannah, the historic district, the squares, the river walk. They ate shrimp and grits at her favorite restaurant, walked hand in hand through the cemetery at midnight, made love in her tiny bedroom while rain pounded against the windows. "I do not want to leave," Adam said Sunday evening as his departure time approached. Then do not. Skip your flight, stay here forever. Tempting, very tempting. He kissed her forehead. But I have that contract negotiation Monday. After that, though, I am coming back, or you come to New York. I do not care which, I just need to see you. New York next time. I want to see your world. Over the next 2 months, they fell into a rhythm. Every other weekend, one of them traveled. Whitney visited New York and saw Adam's apartment, which was beautiful and sterile and completely impersonal. She met his sister, Emily, who flew in from Seattle and immediately loved Whitney. "You are so good for him," Emily said while Adam was out grabbing takeout. "I have not seen him this happy since before Dad died. He is good for me too." Adam came to Savannah and helped Whitney paint her workshop. He met her small circle of friends, charmed them all. He attended a gallery opening where her work was featured, and the pride on his face made Whitney want to cry, but the distance was hard. They missed each other constantly. Phone calls were not enough. Whitney found herself crying after they said goodbye at airports. Adam admitted he was exhausted from the constant travel on top of his already brutal work schedule. "I do not know how to do this long term," Whitney confessed one night, curled against him in her bed during one of his visits. "I hate saying goodbye. I hate sleeping alone now. I hate how hard this is." "I know. I hate it too." He held her tighter. "But I do not know what the solution is. I cannot leave New York. The company is based there, and you have built your whole business in Savannah." I know. I am not asking you to solve it. I am just saying it is hard." They fell asleep sad, holding each other too tight. The solution came from an unexpected place. In early spring, Adam called Whitney with news. "We closed the electric vehicle contract. It is massive, Whitney. Biggest deal in company history." "Adam, that is incredible. Congratulations. There is more. We are opening a new manufacturing facility to handle the increased production. And I get to choose where we build it." He paused. "What if we built it in South Carolina? Charleston is only 2 hours from Savannah. I could move there, oversee the new facility. We would not be living in the same city, but 2 hours is manageable. We could see each other all the time." Whitney's breath caught. "You would do that? Move your entire life?" "I would do anything to be near you, and honestly, this makes sense for the business too. South Carolina has great manufacturing infrastructure, tax incentives for new facilities. It is a smart move." His voice dropped. "But I would not consider it if you were not there. You are what makes it make sense." "When would this happen?" "Construction would start immediately. Facility could be operational by fall. I would need to be on site to oversee everything, so I would move there by summer." "That is so soon." "Too soon?" "No, not too soon. Perfect timing, actually." Whitney was crying, happy tears this time. "I love you, Adam Lawrence, so much. I love you too, more than I knew I could love anyone." The next few months were a whirlwind. Adam split his time between New York, Charleston, and Savannah. Whitney watched him come alive with the new project, genuinely excited about building something from the ground up. The facility would focus on sustainable manufacturing, green technology, everything Adam had wanted to do but had never had the freedom to pursue while his father was alive. "This feels like it is mine," he told Whitney one night, showing her the architectural plans. "Not my father's legacy, not obligation. Mine." "I am so proud of you," she said, and meant it with her whole heart. By summer, Adam had a house in Charleston, a beautiful old place in the historic district that needed work. Whitney helped him pick out furniture, add personal touches, turn it from a house into a home. She stayed over most weekends. They talked about her moving in officially but decided to wait, take things at a reasonable pace even though they both knew where this was heading. Adam's sister Emily came to visit and pulled Whitney aside. I have never seen my brother this happy. You changed his life. He changed mine too. I know he does not say it enough, but you gave him permission to want something different, to choose his own path. That is a gift. Whitney thought about this. Maybe that was what love was. Not just finding someone you connected with, but finding someone who made you braver, who helped you become who you were meant to be. On a warm evening in October, Adam showed up at Whitney's apartment unexpectedly. She had been working late on a tricky restoration and was covered in paint, exhausted. "I thought you were in Charleston this weekend," she said, surprised but happy. "I was. I drove here because I could not wait." He was dressed nicely, unusually formal for a casual visit. "Come with me. I have something to show you." "Adam, I am a mess. Can I at least change? You are perfect exactly as you are. Please just come." Curious, Whitney followed him out to his car. He drove them to Forsyth Park, one of Whitney's favorite places in the city. The sun was setting, painting everything golden. Adam led her to a quiet corner where he had spread out a blanket and set up a picnic. "What is all this? Sit with me." His hands were shaking slightly, and Whitney's heart started to pound. They sat, and Adam took her hands. "Almost a year ago, I went on a ski trip I did not really want to attend. I was exhausted, going through the motions of a life I had never chosen. And then I met you, the only other person who could not ski, the only other person who felt like they did not quite fit. Adam. You changed everything, Whitney. You made me remember who I wanted to be. You gave me the courage to build something that feels like mine. You made me believe that I could have a life that was more than just obligation." He reached into his pocket, pulled out a small velvet box. "I love you. I want to build a life with you officially. I want to wake up next to you every morning and fall asleep holding you every night. I want to be there for your triumphs and your struggles. I want everything with you." He opened the box, revealing a ring. It was beautiful, an emerald surrounded by small diamonds. "This was my mother's. She would have loved you. Will you marry me?" Whitney was crying too hard to speak for a moment. Finally, she managed, "Yes. Yes, of course, yes." He slipped the ring on her finger, then pulled her into a kiss. Around them, the park glowed in the setting sun, and everything felt perfect. They were married the following spring in a small ceremony in Savannah. Sarah was maid of honor. Emily was a bridesmaid. Adam's company colleagues came, along with Whitney's Restoration World friends. It was intimate and beautiful and exactly what they both wanted. Sarah caught the bouquet and rolled her eyes. "I am taking a break from men for a while." "Sure you are," Whitney teased. For their honeymoon, Adam took Whitney to Italy. They spent 2 weeks visiting museums, restoration labs, seeing all the art Whitney had dreamed of seeing. In Florence, standing in front of a Caravaggio, Whitney cried at the beauty of it. Adam held her hand and understood. They settled into married life with surprising ease. Whitney officially moved to Charleston, though she kept her Savannah workshop. She opened a second studio in Charleston, hired 2 apprentices, and started teaching classes on restoration techniques. Her business thrived. Adam's manufacturing facility became a model for sustainable production, earning awards and recognition. He started a scholarship program for engineering students, began mentoring young CEOs, found ways to make his father's legacy his own while still honoring where it came from. They traveled when they could, hosting Sunday dinners at their house, filled their home with art and books and laughter. They adopted a dog, a rescue mutt they named Picasso, who was terrified of everything but loved them fiercely. 2 years into their marriage, Whitney discovered she was pregnant. She told Adam over breakfast, just handed him the test with shaking hands. He stared at it for a long moment, then looked up with tears streaming down his face. "We are having a baby. We are having a baby." He pulled her into his arms, held her so tight. "I am terrified. Me too. But we will figure it out, together. Their daughter was born on a snowy December morning. They named her Grace, and she had Adam's blue eyes and Whitney's stubbornness. Holding her for the first time, Whitney felt complete in a way she had never expected. Adam was a natural father, patient and playful and deeply devoted. He cut back on work travel, arranged his schedule around Grace's needs. Whitney watched him sing lullabies and change diapers and pace the floor with their crying infant, and fell in love with him all over again. When Grace was 6 months old, they took a family trip back to Aspen. Sarah organized another ski trip reunion, and most of the original group came. This time, Whitney and Adam did not even pretend they were going to ski. They spent their days in the cabin with Grace, taking short walks, enjoying the mountain air. One evening, with Grace asleep in her portable crib, Whitney and Adam sat by the fireplace. The same fireplace where they had first really talked, where everything had started. "Do you ever think about that first trip?" Whitney asked. "How crazy it was that we met, that we fell in love so fast. I think about it all the time. How easily I could have not come. How we could have missed each other completely. But we did not. We were the only two who could not ski, and we ended up warm together." She smiled at the memory. "Best decision I ever made, learning to ski badly with you. Best decision I ever made was talking to you that first night, asking you to fail at skiing with me." He pulled her closer. "Thank you for taking that chance, for being brave enough to fall in love with me. Thank you for being worth falling for." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the fire, listening to their daughter's soft breathing. Outside, snow began to fall, dusting the mountains in fresh white. Inside, surrounded by the life they had built together, Whitney felt grateful for ski trips she did not want to attend, for being bad at sports, for chance encounters that became everything. Grace stirred, making small noises that would soon become full cries if they did not act fast. Adam stood to get her but paused to kiss Whitney first. "I love you, I love this life, I love everything we have become. I love you too, all of it, all of us, our perfectly imperfect life." He went to their daughter, scooping her up with practiced ease. Whitney watched her husband comfort their baby, and thought about how far they had both come. From lonely people going through the motions to a real family built on love and trust, and the courage to take risks. Years later, when Grace was old enough to ask how they met, Whitney and Adam would tell her the story. About a ski trip and two people who could not ski. About finding warmth together when everything else felt cold. About taking chances on fast love and impossible logistics. And building something beautiful from a single perfect week. And every time they told the story, they would hold hands, and the love in their eyes would make Grace believe in magic and fate, in the power of showing up even when you are scared and finding exactly who you needed in the last place you expected. They never did learn to ski properly. But they did learn to build a life together, to support each other's dreams, to be brave when it mattered. They learned that love does not wait for perfect timing or ideal circumstances. Sometimes love is two people who cannot ski, warming each other up, choosing each other again and again, until one day they look around and realize they have built something extraordinary from those first fumbling attempts at connection. Their story was not perfect. They argued about whose turn it was to change diapers, disagreed about money and work-life balance and where to spend holidays. But they always came back to each other, always remembered that they were on the same team, always chose love. And on cold winter nights, when the snow fell outside their Charleston home, Adam would pull Whitney close and whisper, "Best ski trip ever," and she would laugh and agree, and they would hold each other warm against the cold, exactly like they had from the very beginning.